Please continue the sessions. Meanwhile, students are joining.
All right. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Uh, First, let me share the screen. Yes. Those were in first semester student uh, or second semester student. They have already doing classes, I suppose, on storytelling, not visual storytelling. And those who are senior, they have already come across. Now, visual storytelling is different from stories represented in linguistic form or with the help of text. Visual storytelling is representation of events or a narrative through visuals, imageries. Now, before I get into the topic, let me tell you today's topic of discussions. First, I have designed in this manner because those who attend storytelling class, they know about the technicalities of storytelling and all that. I don't want to repeat and I don't want to make it a class. Rather, it would be better if it becomes a little bit interactive, or if it become something more informative and more informative than what our existing syllabus or our textbooks does. So, I have chosen topic of discussion: understanding visual culture, introduction to visual storytelling, tradition of visual storytelling in different cultures and different times as well, visual storytelling in modern time, and visual storytelling in the context of animation and game art. This is the last I have kept. And before I begin talk about visual storytelling, I must tell you that in visual storytelling, I have said that a story is represented through imageries or images, but in visual storytelling, text, sound, movement, light, texture, all elements of design is involved. Okay. For example, text. Remember that word is also an image. An image can become a word. So the relationship between word and image is very crucial, and both word in the form of spoken word, also word in the form of written word, along with images, tell or express a narrative. This happens. This is a fact. Now, why are we suddenly talking about visual storytelling? Because visual storytelling is not a new phenomenon in the field of culture. Its existence is as old as human race itself. But today we are talking about visual storytelling, writing about visual culture. All this development, this thinking process, or this, for example, visual culture, a sub-discipline of cultural studies, developed almost started developing from almost after middle of 20th century. Before I begin, I must tell you one historical fact that in history, there are quite often a time came that brought a paradigm shift in all aspects of life. 18th, 19th century or mid 19th century in Europe especially was a time that responsible for whatever we have in today's world, the geographical division, technological progress, culture, and of course, emergence of visual culture with the advancement of technology. Nowadays, we are dominated by visuals. Wherever anyone wants to see or not, everywhere only visuals, still moving, all kinds. And we must remember that visuals are not innocent appearances. There are always some kind of intellectual input or thinking process or intention involved, whatever we see around us. Therefore, understanding visual is important as visual artists. So before we understand storytelling, we will understand the value and the reality of appearances, visual appearances. So visual culture is aspect. What is visual culture? If I ask this question, visual culture is aspects of culture at large. Culture at large means everything what human beings do, human being does, expressed in visual. We can also divide these two words separately for better understanding. Visual, here visual means everything that we make, which means human, makes. Everything means everything, literally, from clothes to posters, photographs, films, buildings, gardens, even food, even our body. When we go to gymnasium and build our body, that also become part of visual culture. In visual culture, that is considered as visual. But if you say that I was looking at the sky, I saw a flake of cloud that looks like an elephant. That cloud, that doesn't, we will not count in visual culture. But if you take a photograph of that cloud, then the photograph is a cultural product. The cloud is natural. Okay. We are not talking about natural appearances. A mountain, a forest, a tree, no. But if it is a garden made by human, yes, we can count it in this, within the periphery of the subdiscipline, visual culture. So the visual means this in this context. And culture simply everything that human being do. Everything from cooking, reading, speaking, talking, painting, singing, dancing, sitting on a chair, everything that we do comes under the umbrella term that is culture at large. But here we will look into all the visual appearances, all the cultural product that has a visual presence, about that only. Visual culture covers that area. Visual culture then is a term that refers to the tangible or visible expression by a people means a community, a state, a civilization, and collectively describes the characteristics of the body as a whole. Body means the body of the community, or body of the state, or body of the civilization. Its characteristic, it expresses. You look at the image, it expresses a traditional life and culture of Rajasthan, for example. This image expresses that. As I have said, that a visual representation is not an accidental or arbitrary. Yes, sometimes it is, but mostly all visual representations around us comes up with some kind of intention, some kind of ambition, some kind of from some kind of thought process. This particular image I have added because long ago, I mean, it's almost in beginning of 90s, this kind of film posters started appearing in different small towns in Bengal. Now, the people, those who speak English, go to school a little bit, studied in college, they ridiculed this kind of appearance, like, strange kind of costume, strange kind of story, strange kind of makeup. But later, much later, when I was studying at the university, then I learned from one of my seniors that a large number of people might, and these films are made in collaboration with Bangladesh and Indian Kolkata film industry, which means Bengali film industry. So the reason for this kind of visual representation of the story of this movie is because people from Bangladesh came to India long ago in 47, and that process was continuing, and it's still continuing. Now, the demographic character in Bengali demographic, West Bengal, millions of people live who are from rural Bangladesh, and also a large number of people lived in rural Bengal at that point in time. So these posters and these films, especially for those people, not people who live in city, English speaking audience, no. All right. So the making design of this poster attracts those people only. Okay. Now, a little bit a small audiovisual guide I want to give, very brief, about visual culture. Just a second. Yes. Visual storytelling is a multidisciplinary subject, and many subdisciplines and many area of studies are related to this particular discussion. So I will not go too deep into the explanation of visual culture. We don't have that much time. That's why I'm showing this video that gives a very brief, sketchy understanding of the subject. So that's it. Now, yes, the reason I included this, because before we understand visual storytelling, we need to understand the value and importance of visual. We need to understand visual itself. Sometimes we look at a picture, look at a film, and we take it for granted. We just go with its content. But all the process, intention behind it, we do not pay much thought into. And visual culture does that, does that analysis. Okay. So visual literacy, visual cultural studies eventually make people visually literate, which means to understand an appearance. Now, how to read visual representation? Look at this picture. Its name is, it's painted by Richard Hamilton, an American artist. The name of the picture is Just What Is It That Makes Today's Home So Different, So Appealing, painted in almost end of 60s, 1960s in America. It is a collage, paper collage, accumulation of many images and motifs from different sources. If you look into the image, the speciality of this artwork is that the artist wanted to portray the urban American middle class aspiration. What America at that, American cities and urban life at that point in time, what kind of body male American, young male want, what kind of appearance female want, evolution of technology. And if you look outside the window, we can see large billboard advertisement full of images all over the room, all over city. So the work does not critically looks upon the American life. Neither it appreciate that. It just express that how American thinks at that point in time, how Americans thought an ideal home, ideal life, ideal body, so on and so forth. That's how this artwork can be thought about or spoken about. Now, visual literacy is the ability to interpret, negotiate, and make meaning from information presented in the form of an image. Extending the meaning of literacy, normal literacy means a person know how to write and read. Extending the meaning of literacy, which commonly signifies interpretation of a written or printed text. So visual literacy includes all these field of studies: visual language, how visual play the role of language, visual thinking, visual learning, visual perception, visual communication. Visual communication, perhaps you all know about, because perhaps it's parts of your syllabus and course. Visual perception, I have given an example that as you are looking at the sky, you see a flake of cloud, and it appears to you that oh, the cloud looks like a baby elephant. The cloud is not elephant; it's your perception towards the cloud. That's how you can describe perception. Visual language, of course, film, painting, sculpture, animation, game, everything tries to tell something. with imageries, with juxtaposing many frames, many images together, many images, objects, etc. together, along with verbal spoken language or sound, music, and etc. So visual is a language. Visual thinking is a very, very theoretically dense, multidisciplinary thing that explain the science of visuality, the science of human body, and how we look at things. For example, visual thinking. If I give you an example of visual thinking, for example, in market, uh, I'm just giving a small, very simplified example. In market, the price of onion is very high. The price of potato is little low, and the price of say for example carrot little bit higher than potato but lower than um, onion. So these three vegetables, okay, you want to represent their price in a visual form. What do? You can draw three vertical line. Okay, you can write down the names of the vegetable uh, at the bottom, and line on the top of onion will be higher than the potato, and line on the carrot will be higher than the potato but lower than the onion. So this is a diagram you are creating that anybody can look at and understand. You are not writing about it. You are not writing numbers and everything. Just visual representation. As a visual learning, visual learning means when we learn about visual, that I will get into. It is not a discipline so far. It's just a term used here. So visual literacy comes from understanding of all these aspects. Two suggestions I give you. Now I'm moving into almost around 70s. We see that not 70s actually, it's 50s or mid 60s in Germany. For example, Walter Benjamin from Frankfurt School writing a book called The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. There he's directly explaining that how mechanical reproduction, which is making prints, taking away the aura of original artworks or original images. A painting can be hundreds of print can be made from an original painting. Original painting always stay in a museum, all right, but its print can reach your home, your bedroom. You can keep it there on your wall. Okay, so that's a very complex and very complicated discussion that Benjamin did. After that, we are seeing during 70s John Berger, ways of seeing. If possible, I have a link here. You can find it in YouTube and you can watch it. Very interesting explanation about visuality. Laura Mulvey's visual pleasure and narrative cinema, extremely significant essay on American film, narrative film, fiction film. She has written from a feminist point of view in 1970s. I will give you little bit glimpse, not the entire video. It's a 20-minute video, just a glimpse, just to show how these people were thinking about whatever we see around us and political nature in other way of appearances, whether it is in painting, it is in cinema, it is in advertising, it is in nowadays in game or animation films. It's true and applies everywhere. Just a second. I said it is a book, but it was actually TV production, which was made by this person. Oh no, reconnect, no? Just Yes. Yeah. It was made for BBC as TV series. If you search in YouTube, you will find all the series and you can hear better than reading. And you will be benefited for sure.
Authentic. If I go to the National Gallery and look at this painting, now in the second, this is the first of 4 programs in which I want to question some of the assumptions usually made about the tradition of European painting. That tradition which was born about 1400, died about 1900. Tonight, it isn't so much the paintings themselves which I want to consider as the way we now see them, now in the second half of the 20th century, because we see these paintings as nobody saw them before. If we discover why this is so, we shall also discover something about ourselves and the situation in which we are living. The process of seeing paintings or seeing anything else is less spontaneous and natural than we tend to believe. A large part of seeing depends upon habit and convention. All the paintings of the tradition used the convention of perspective, which is unique to European art. Now, perspective centers everything on the eye of the beholder. It is like a beam from a lighthouse, only instead of light traveling outwards, appearances travel in. And our tradition of art called those appearances reality. Perspective makes the eye the center of the visible world. But the human eye can only be in one place at a time. It takes its visible world with it as it walks. With the invention of the camera, everything changed. We could see things which were not there in front of us. Appearances could travel across the world. It was no longer so easy to think of appearances always traveling regularly to a single center.
I am an eye, a mechanical eye. I, the machine, show you a world the way only I can see it. I free myself for today and forever from human immobility. I'm in constant movement. I approach and pull away from objects. I creep under them. I move alongside a running horse's mouth. I fall and rise with the falling and rising bodies. This is I, the machine, maneuvering in the chaotic movements, recording one movement after another in the most complex combinations. Freed from the boundaries of time and space, I coordinate any and all points of the universe wherever I want them to be. My way leads towards the creation of a fresh perception of the world. Thus I explain, in a new way, the world unknown to you.
That's all. I just wanted to inform about this particular thing, a particular series, that if you like later, not now, you can find it and can watch it. And also this black and white film that was in display right now is called Man with a Movie Camera. This Man with a Movie Camera is also extraordinarily interesting film. You guys can try to watch, and it is also available nowadays on internet, so there will not be any problem. So how to read a visual in this case as part of visual cultural studies? I will introduce 2 extremely important scholars, Aby Warburg and Erwin Ponsky. Both are German. Warburg was a German cultural theorist. Aby Warburg, and Erwin Ponsky was a historian, academician, etc. Now, among both of them, Ponsky's influence is the most significant influence. Both tried to understand how to read visual. Warburg's work was limited within the framework of art history, but Ponsky, said that Ponsky's research was around and about the relationship between shape or form and its context. Context means social, political, economic, cultural, religious, linguistic, whatever context you may say. an image and its relationship with the context within which it was constructed, made, and disseminated. That determine, according to him, that determine a meaning of a work of art or in any image, any appearance. The same thing almost he is saying, but within the periphery of art only. But he has a larger and broader periphery. He said his theory as iconology. There is a word called iconography. I suppose all of you know. But iconology or iconography does not I mean, they do not have any such differences. There is a very kind of porous boundary in between them, but they are almost same. Both basically study visual appearances to understand meaning. I am not showing this video because otherwise we will run out of time. For example, I will just give some example. For example, look at this image. It looks like that this woman, in the name of the image is liberty leading the people, and her liberty, freedom, has been represented in the form of a woman who is almost walking forward towards the frame, as if towards the audience, and we can see people from all class and all background. Now, if we put this picture, very romantic kind of picture, if we put this picture in the context from where it comes, it was painted after French Revolution. After French Revolution in 1789, almost end of 18th century, one of the most horrible, revolution that also brought many changes in Europe and later on other part of the world, especially the meaning and notion of modern nation started forming from this time, and people celebrated that. And to celebrate those aspirations, those emotions, revolutionary emotions, Eugen Delacroix, the name of the artist, painted this picture. So the historical context is important to understand all the meaning. This boy with pistol here, you can see, many art historians says that it is taken from a character from a literary work. And apologies, I have forgot the name of the work and the author, from a literary work quite celebrated at that point in time. This boy comes from there. So, and all form of people from all strata of society, elite, poor, everyone was involved in that mutiny or revolutionary act in France at that point in time. They have been represented. So this is the same thing I have written over here. Now, again, how to read an icon, a deity, anthropomorphic representation of a god or goddess. Now, normally we know that Shiva has so many symbols: Trishul, third eye, blue color, snake. This is the river Ganges, moon. So many things attached to one body. But if we ask any anthropologist or historian, they would say that these images that attached with the body of this god or attached with this icon, they have got attached over the period of time. Now, for example, serpent. If you look at Hindu pantheon, Hindu deities in mainstream Hinduism, we do not see the presence or importance of snake so much. Also, we do not see god and goddesses have black skin tone. Black always considered something evil, bright, something very positive, very good, very divine. Then why three specific deity or god and goddess in Hindu order have black colors of their body? Kali, Krishna, Shiva. It is quite possible that, for example, I rule a land. I worship god and goddesses from mainstream Hindu tradition, but I have whole lot of subjects, those who believe in serpent, worship serpent, whose color stone is skin color is not bright black. I cannot make them unhappy. So what we can do, we can include those symbols, and it is quite possible that that's how Shiv, the presence of snake eventually acquired a kind of position or kind of existence within the mainstream tradition of Hindu iconography. All right. This painting is not a painting of a goddess. This is a representation of India as a mother by him, Rabindranath Tagore. It was painted before independence, that expressed the aspiration and basic need that an independent country wants. Food, this is some kind of crop, book, education, clothes, and peace. Symbolic representation, but it only becomes relevant when you think about the background, the situation within which it was painted. Now we have a different India. We can paint it in a different manner. But at that point in time, that's how many people imagined and identified themselves with the image. Roy Lichtenstein's this paintings, nothing. It only expressed newly evolved printing technology in America. He saw those printed pictures and started taking influence from that, and his style became like this. And as you can see, he also used words with image, because this graphic novel or comic book started coming in the market, so he got influenced from that thing. Last, semiotics. Semiotics means study of sign and symbol, sign or symbol, whatever you say. This semiotics, one Swiss German linguist whose name was Ferdinand de Saussure, he contributed in the basic formation of semiotic studies. He said that he was a linguist, so he approached it not from the position of image, but from the end of language. He says that a sign is a combination. No, first let me. A sign is something that represents something else other than its own. For example, a red rose. For many people, a red rose is a symbol of love, affection, so on and so forth. A red rose is a red rose. We represent it as a sign of love, affection. But love, affection, and red rose both are different things, absolutely different entities. Okay, so he said that a sign is a combination of a signifier and a signified. Signifier means the word, the sound image, or the words. A signified means the concept the word express. So when someone say tree, we immediately know how a tree looks like. So we get a vision, a visuality in our mind. If someone say, sorry, CAT, cat, immediately we visualize a cat with 4 legs, a furry, tiny animal with a long tail, and so on and so forth. Okay. So a sign is combination of these two elements according to him. But we will look at sign as something that represents something else other than its own. Now come. Look at this image. What you see? It's from Sin City. First, color. Black and white, filmmaker used this kind of color, and most importantly, light and shadow, that makes this character like a villain, like a vamp, cruel, full of envy, right? And full of anger and rage and I don't know what to say. So this use of light and shade here is quite significant and symbolic. And architecture can be considered as a symbol. Look at Taj Mahal, we said, oh, it's a shrine of love. Now, see this. It's just very tiny few seconds advertisement, actually. See how sign works in artwork, whether it's film, advertisement, animation, game, whatever you say. Oh, just a second, I need to share it now.
ये आसमां, ये ज़मीं, ये आसमां, हमारा कल, हमारा आज, हमारा कल, हमारा आज, बुलंद भारत की बुलंद तस्वीर, हमारा बजाज, हमारा बजाज, बुलंद भारत की बुलंद तस्वीर, हमारा बजाज, हमारा बजाज.
How to stop it? Okay, so in that the advertisement used to come in 80s, almost mid 80s, 1984. It started coming the Doordarshan TV. The reason I am showing this, that the Bajaj scooter here is the symbol, is a sign. In the advertisement, it has been represented as a sign. Sign of what? Sign of new India, sign of progress, economic progress, technological progress, and of course, urban Indian aspiration. India independence came 1947. By 70s, India was an extremely complicated politically turmoil zone. Different kind of movements was taking place because of discontent, economic inequality in education, and so on and so forth. So by 84, it started changing. Indian technological industrial production started coming up. Someone having a automobile at that point in time, a common woman on street, was unimaginable in 70s, 60s, or 50s. But with the coming of Bajaj, it's changed, and the advertiser knew how to present it, how to, that is the mastery of presenting a narrative to the audience. That's why he made this. He made the central protagonist of this narrative that you have just seen is a scooter, and everyone praising it and revolving around it. That is the symbolic value of the scooter. Okay. Now, if you understand sign, if you understand iconology or contextual relevance of image, and if you have understanding of visual culture, how visual play a role in the culture, in our life, in our thinking process, then it will be easier for you to construct a story or a narrative with visual imagery, using sign, using specific kind of image, bringing some images at the forefront to give importance, putting some images far away from it to make it, to create some kind of visual hierarchy to tell a story. This understanding will make you, help you in critical thinking. Okay. Now, introduction to visual storytelling. This image, the visual storytelling is nothing new, as I have said. It is as old as human race itself. This was a painting from a cave in southern France, Chouvout Cave. It was painted almost 32 years ago, 32,000 years ago, sorry. But here you see this tiger has been represented with rapid succession of images. And there are many images found in that cave where we see that a buffalo is running, but the legs, 4 legs, there are no 4 legs, there are many legs, rapidly drawn, one after another, one after another. And it seems like that this prehistoric painter noticed that a buffalo, a tiger, or any animal is not a static object, they move. And they tried to capture the mobility or movement. If ever possible, try to watch this documentary, Cave of Forgotten Dreams by Werner Herzog. He explained this thing in his documentary, that these prehistoric people intentionally had chosen most uneven surface of the cave. But why? Then he explains that those days inside cave there is no light, sunlight does not get into, it's completely dark. So it is obvious they use fire torch. And when you light a torch with fire, fire is not a static source of light, it always flickers. And if the source of light flickers, shadow it creates, that also moves. So it is quite possible that this movement of shadow gave this prehistoric painter a sense of movement or mobility. That's why he says that these cave paintings are basically a primordial form of cinema. If possible, you can watch. I think you guys will able to manage to get it from internet. So a story or narrative is a connected series of events told through words, written or spoken, imageries, still or moving, body language, performance, music. I speed up my presentation a little bit, otherwise we will get out of time. Body language, performance, music, or any other form of communication. One can tell a story about anything, and the event described can be real or imaginary, covering both fiction and non-fiction, and leaving no topic, genre, or style untouched. You can write or represent story about anything. Now, every culture has its own stories or narratives which are shared as a means of entertainment, education, cultural preservation, or instilling moral values. Now, entertainment part of a story we all know, it's a story told visually or otherwise. But cultural preservation or instilling moral values means education still perhaps we understand, because all the stories, folk tales, fables, if you read, you will see there are always some kind of moral of the story in the end. So try this a little bit. First, see the name Ek, Anek, or Ekta, which means one, many, and unity. After independence, Indian nation practiced this principle, unity in diversity. But how to tell the people, especially children, how to make them realize that diverse does not mean broken. Many different things can come together, can stay peacefully, can create an ecology among themselves. So that's why this animated, very early, simplistic version of animated film was shown to everyone, to the nation, I would say. See. And it was very popular at one point in time.
Hey there, I'm Natasha, and my specialty is making all your app building dreams come true.
हम सभी एक हैं, तररररर। भाषा अनेक है, भाषा अनेक है। ये अनेक क्या है दीदी? अनेक यानी बहुत सारे। बहुत सारे? क्या बहुत सारे? अच्छा, बताती हूँ। सूरज एक, चंदा एक, तारे अनेक। तारों को अनेक भी कहते हैं? नहीं नहीं, देखो फिर से। सूरज एक, चंदा एक, एक 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 करके तारे भये अनेक। ठीक से समझाओ ना दीदी। देखो देखो एक गिलहरी, पीछे पीछे अनेक गिलहरियाँ।
So that's how, I mean, the entire this musical animated film used to explain the value, cultural value, cultural diversity, but in a manner so that a tiny little boy or girl, a child, understand it. So this is the educational purpose of storytelling, and visual storytelling helps it the most to educate people. So I'm not reading out this portion. I'm directly going into different form of visual storytelling that existed, and some of them still exist. Then I will come into the technological part of it. This is a kind of folktale of Rajasthan represented on cloth, a continuous narrative, as you can see. I do not know the story behind it, but those who live in Rajasthan who are knows about folk tales and fables of that region, they could be able to read it. In classical Indian art, Shanchi, Buddhist tradition, all these motifs together represent a narrative of narrative related to Buddha, his teaching, his life, life of monastery, also everyday life. This is also a form of visual representation of narrative. Ajanta, I think you all of know, Jataka's story represented on the wall of this cave. Caves, there are many caves in Ajanta. Khajuraho, any temple in South India, in Northern India, ancient temple, if you go, you will see sculptures on its surface. And those sculptures were made to convey some kind of message to the people. If we go some elsewhere, for example, in Egypt, ancient Egypt is full of, dominated by this kind of representation of narrative, different kind of narrative, stories about the pharaohs, priests, scribes, different kind of. And the speciality of this representation. Nowadays, when we look into this what you call graphic novel like thing, we see that written words and image exist together. But here you see these hieroglyphs are basically written word, and all the narrative paintings and narrative representation, whether it is mural or painting or scroll in Egypt, that includes word and image together to narrate or explain what it wants to say. In Greek verse, ancient Greek verse, we can see these images around the vase printed or painted to explain the story of the Trojan War in Troy. Scroll painting in Japan is also a tradition of storytelling. Imakimono in Japan is also illustrated hand scroll that have been produced since the 10th century. Imakimono combined both text and images here also in telling a narrative and several chronological sections of a story as the reader unroll the scroll. The scroll will be given to you as a roll. You will unroll it, unpack it, and gradually the story gets unfolded. Right. Such is the process of telling or showing, exhibiting, whatever you say. In India, different region, if you go, for example, in Himalayan region, in the northern region, Pahari miniature painting. If you look into this frame, you will understand a narrative, a story exists behind this. Story related to regional folklore, story related to the life of god and goddesses, also stories taken from different epic poems. Those are represented in visual form. Of course, these are static visual. These are not like in game or in animation or in filmmaking, moving visuals. These are static visual, but this is also representation of story or narrative in the form of visual. If we look into our folk culture, Madhubani painting of Bihar tells stories about village women, their life, about nature, everything, about everyday practices, about beliefs, disbeliefs, whole lot of range of subject they have to represent through this kind of visual motifs and designs. Scroll painting or Potachitra of Bengal. This scroll, as you can see, there are many frames, one after another. This is also the thing is that when the scroll painter show his scroll, what he does, he gradually unfolds the scroll, and with each frame, he sing a song continuously. He sing a song. That song basically narrates the story behind this representation, visual representation. So here we see that visual and verbal coming together. This is also a primordial form of cinema, you can say. We all know about puppetry, about Kathakali. The name Katha means conversation, storytelling, word. Kali comes from Kala, which means art. So the direct meaning of Kathakali is story play. But these are performance. Body is the main visual, body is the main object through which the story is told. Kathak is also the same. It tells a story about Krishna, about many other deities, and many other subjects. Mime. Mime is a pure performance without any kind of words, only physical movement. I have an example, but I do not think I should. I only have 1 hour in hand. So, okay, let's take a look. Those who know about mime is fine. Those who haven't seen ever will have an experience of this kind of visual narrative. That much, I think, enough to understand what I'm trying to say. So these are, there are many messages. Am I missing something? Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, these are different form of storytelling, visual storytelling, or visual representation of narrative comes from different, context, historical context, cultural context, also different form of representation, performative representation, painted representation, sculpted representation, so on and so forth. So now we enter the zone from where this reality in which we are living today started. And as I said in the beginning, that mid-19th century was a time, actually process began from 17th century in Europe, but mid-19th century, it reached, the progress reached its zenith. It was the time when technology became very prominent, developed. It is the time of industrial revolution in Europe. So what change it's brought? Rapid changing technology. This technological change made the major aspect of this technological change is that production. Whatever before technological innovation, whatever human made, it was limited in number, made by hand. But when machine was involved, industry developed, this number multiplied, rapidly multiplied. Everything that we use. And this increase in number also applies to the not only production of objects, different kind of objects that we use in everyday life, that also applies in case of image making or image production. Because 18th century, 19th century also time when photography developed, film or what you call celluloid film came almost end of 19th century, 1866 or 1868, like. So this is the first, what you call high-speed photography. And this is photography basically, but high-speed photography that put together somehow and like this to make it movable, to make a moving image. As I said, that human race or human being always interested in mobility of image from ancient time to modern time. So there you go. This is, you can see these numbers, frames. This is, so it was almost the first moving image using technological device. And here I mentioned one thing, just remember that mention one thing, the story does not means that it has to have 2000 words in it. It can be one single line or two line to describe something. Okay. So this image clearly describes a man riding a horse. That is the description, and that is the representation of that description of that narrative. I'm using narrative and story interchangeably. Both are almost same to me, or to actually, if you think about it. Now, different devices started emerging from this time. যেমন this flippy, flip card kind of thing, as you can see in the illustration. Thermotrope in France. If you pull the string, the card rapidly spin and it creates a visual illusion. The bird, the cage, and the bird in the cage. The cage is printed on one side, and other side, the bird is printed. This is a kind of child's play, but very interesting to create visual, interesting device to for creating a visual illusion. Zoetrope. This is perhaps the first, primordial form of animated film or animation. So a zoetrope is one of the several pre-filmed animation device that produce the illusion of motion by displaying sequence of drawings or photographs showing progressive phases of motion. After that, by 1827 or 1830s, we see the appearance of photography, however, not film photography. Some other kind of paper was used for printing or making these images. But by almost end of 19th century, film, which is celluloid film, started coming in the market, and we see this kinetoscope. These are film rolls. One can look through this keyhole as the man is looking, and can somehow can roll these films to see a series of images through lens. There is a lens. So this is a kind of image, not image production, but kind of device that help people, entertainment device, of course. But cinema was not developed at that point in time. The first cinema or moving image that's telling a narrative or giving a very short narrative, as I said, is The Arrival of Train, produced by Lumiere brothers. Let's see. So that's it. Now you can see that how technology and innovation of technology eventually changing the course of visual storytelling. Yeah, after that is. And by first half of 20th century, we are seeing the emergence of animation. Take a look. it was the very beginning of what we are doing here today. We have become much more sophisticated than before because of technological innovation, and this after this innovation by 50s or end of 60s almost in America, we see this sensorama, image augmented and virtual technology. This the specialty of this machine was that particularly this one, movie camera was invented by then. A continuous video was taken of motorcycle riding through the street of New York, and the video is there inside on screen. One can sit here on this chair, can hold the handle of a motorbike, and there is a fan inside it that blow air on the face of the viewer so that he can feel when he's looking at the screen that motorcycle is going ahead through the street. He would be able to get the feel of movement. Also, the machine had some kind of smell related to the street, sound, street sound, and movement. The chair moves. It moves in a manner so that it feels like you are actually sitting on a motorbike. So this Sensorama augmented and virtual reality machine came up, and by 70s, video game console, video game device to play video game came out. Now we move into the contemporary. This is the background. This is the past. These innovations are very, very important that today help us or somehow motivate us or maybe control us in a way to express ourselves. In contemporary storytelling, first you take a look at this image from a graphic novel. I will get back to it a little bit. So in contemporary storytelling, it's better we understand some principles. There are many other principles. I have included some. First, our intention here when we making an animation film or a film or videography or a game, our intention, our main objective is to show. We need to construct the visual first, because a picture tells thousands words to let each say as much as it can. A picture should be, or an image should be informative enough so that the viewer understand it easily and can read it easily, get connected with it easily, or identify him or herself with it, with that, directly. Portray dynamic movements. The human brain is always tuned into movement. Movement denotes change, and the brain always evaluates where change is good or bad. But here, by saying movement, I am not saying that it has to be fast, always very quick and fast. No, movement or pace, or in other words, you can say a kind of rhythm of change from one sequence to another sequence is important in visual storytelling. Neither you can make it very long, lengthy, or not like very quick, so that it becomes difficult to comprehend. Composition, which means how all the elements, visual elements, whether it is human body, objects, buildings, whatever you want to show, that part of your narrative, how you arrange within a given or within a limited space. In that case, in our case, this space is a screen. All right. Composition creates meaning. Composition helps build the aesthetic value of a representation, and composition help make the story visually readable. There are many elements with which we compose. And also, I would mention about, just like I said that I'll get back to this image again. See how all the elements are placed. If you look at it, one point perspective, deep perspective, 1, 2, 3, 3 figures. There is a building, a sense of depth and distance is created. If you look at this frame, you do not feel that there is a kind of emptiness or disbalance anywhere. And especially look at the figure. The designer want to show this is the character within this frame. These two are just appearance on street. Okay. So how he or she has put the central character in the front to make it important in the frame. That also, aspect, a kind of task of a composed image. A composed image define the hierarchy of appearances. Who comes first, who comes second, third, and who disappears from frame. So in, of course, in game or animation, editing is not that way important, perhaps, but I included these two instances that in filmmaking, especially, for example, editing is one of the devices through which one can create meaning. One can tell a narrative more effectively. And as for, but this I have included for mobility or movement, the importance of movement in visual storytelling, to illustrate how movement change the entire mood of a story. Let's take a look. Now, Sergei Eisenstein, actually the person who pioneered this editing technique called montage, cinematic montage. Small, quick cut, and all the cuts are put together. And he believed that editing is not only a cut paste job in film. Editing is a technique that helps create meaning and significance in a visual narrative. Now take a look. It's a very famous film by Sergei Eisenstein's Battleship Potemkin. I shall show you. So what we see here, that quick change of frames, camera quick cuts and quick change of frame, and the speed of the visual narration. It's a speedy narration because the content, the subject matter is about a mutiny by by people in a battleship, by the sailor in a battleship against the authority. So to create tension, also symbolic value that he used. As I said, the sign is one of the element in visual storytelling. Using sign is very important. If you like, it is not necessary. So here the cannon, this is a cannon, the mouth of a cannon. This person is cleaning, as if it's a dangerous machine, as if you know, is giving some kind of as if it is a preparation for some kind of agitation. It can be read like that. And many other symbols are there. It's more than one or movie. I can't show it here. If you like, you can find it from internet. It's a very significant one. Now, other one that I wanted to show, that just opposite to it. If it has a fast movement, now I will show you the most slow representation of a narrative. That also permitted. Mobility or movement does not mean fast, quick movement. Movement affects our emotion. So how you represent your visuals, in what is the rhythm, what is the pace, is important in visual storytelling. Now this is about Andrei Tarkovsky. Andrei Tarkovsky was a Russian filmmaker. He never used this montage technique, this continuous small cuts. He always had taken very slow, long shot. His characters walk slowly, very little, you know, sometimes sudden movement, quick movement of the figure in a frame. This kind of. So just take a look a little bit. Also, let me inform, it is relevant in game, in any kind of visual technique of telling a story. He used texture elaborately to create meaning, color, and frame or composition. Superb composition. Just take a look.
То есть, если бы вы спросили, каким образом на вас влияет, скажем, ваш любимый Брессон, или Антониони, или Бергман, или Куросава, Мизакучи, я бы не сказал, что таким образом, что я пытаюсь им подражать. Потому что самое главное в любом искусстве – это найти свой собственный язык, найти способ говорить на языке, который свойственен только тебе и никому больше.
What words would best describe a Tarkovsky film? Haunting, ethereal, hypnotic, serene. Tarkovsky was a one-of-a-kind artist whose works have become instantly recognizable through their masterful spellbinding imagery and the atmosphere oozing from their pores. If I were asked who makes pure cinema, one of the first names that would spring to mind is Andrei Tarkovsky. His cinematic philosophy was that communication doesn't have to be expressed vocally. Words. Emotion is another way to relay a message, and the right images can express emotions far beyond the verbal. To quote the man himself, a poet is someone who uses a single image to express a universe.
Here, let me tell you one thing that I haven't mentioned. There are more points I will talk about, but understanding of color, or especially color psychology and symbolic value of color, is very important. In whether it is in film, it's in game, or it's in animation, movie or animation, whatever content you make. Understanding of color is necessary, especially psychological appeal or our psychological association with color is important in visual representation of any kind, whether you tell a story or you do not tell a story, just a static image you create. Understanding of colors, especially in media or in screen art, understanding because the characteristic or nature of color is very removed from analog devices of coloring a picture. You have more options. So I would definitely appeal that paying attention to the role of color in visual representation is very crucial here.
Universal message. Tarkovsky only made 7 feature films, yet all of them display his own distinctive methodology. Here was a man who strived to be unique in order to discover what he could offer to the aesthetic of cinema as an art. He disregarded the methods of others in his own work and instead acted as a stylistic individual.
Если я замечаю во время работы, что какой-то кусок фильма или кусочек кадра отдельный вдруг становится похожим на то, что мог бы сделать, то есть я изменяю решение той и другой сцены.
Tarkovsky was only concerned with techniques that were uniquely cinematic, to do with film that which couldn't be done with other art forms. The concentration on visual expression, combined with his originality, formed a special type of filmic grammar, a language that didn't comply to the rules of reality, but existed within their own bespoke laws.
Открыл отдельный язык, который довольно сложно развить.
That much. So you see, if you noticed, this is a video essay, of course, not a excerpt of a film, but movement of camera is very slow. If you see his movie, you will understand. So that is the role of movement in telling or narrating something visually. Now, there are more things to be taken care of in the process. As I said, visual hierarchy. Visual hierarchy. Visual hierarchy is just as important in visual storytelling. Oh, I'm running out of storytelling as it is in your user experience design. In the case of game, in the case of film, it is what you call visual or viewer's experience. But anyway, what is important? Visual hierarchy, use of light, use your light to your advantage, build scenes with color psychology, as I have already mentioned, use visual metaphors or sign in your picture. Now I just end with this frame, this slide. I will end this presentation. Animation now, in the case of animation, visual storytelling and game, the storytelling at large in these two contexts, I believe, has a basic differences that in the case of game and user, it is user experience. Someone's playing the game, someone's become a participant in the story, a character in the story. He's or she's setting a journey through a pathway designed by the game designer, and these pathways are plots in story in the context of game. But in the context of animation, it's viewer's experience. Viewers does not control the story. Viewer observe and get himself attached to it or identified to it. But in the case of game, story is designed so that someone actually, I mean, not physically, but psychologically can travel through the trajectories or the pathways designed by the game designer, and all the problems or crisis or danger will be solved by the participant or the gamer. No other actors or characters present in the story of a game solve any problem. The players, the participants, will be the people who will solve the given problem in the narrative. But in the case of animation film, the characters designed for a particular narrative gets into different crises, different events, and resolve those situations and move to the end. That is, I believe, that the basic differences between, if we think about story writing and therefore making either an animation and game, this is a basic difference. Otherwise, all the other things are almost same. A story can be driven for any sources, existing sources, or any event, any real life event, any literature, any film, anywhere. In both cases, these are the facts absolutely same. Only difference, as I have already mentioned, and story, whether in the case of film or animation or game, these three quality is needed. First, credible. That means believable. Whatever story it is, the user or viewer should not disbelieve. Some kind of belief need to be created. Coherent. Do not write any arbitrary, sudden, disconnected events within a narrative. And dramatically meaningful. These three qualities make a story significant and better. That's how I would say. I am not going into this small video I kept because we have run out of time already. So thank you very much for attending.
Yes, students, if you have any doubt,
any question,
you can ask. Any questions you can ask. No doubt. Great. Thank you, sir, for attending, delivering the wonderful session. Okay, it was very nice. And students, please fill the feedback form before leaving the session.
Thank you too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
This.
Okay.
Thank you.